everyone, and welcome back to Everyday Wellness with Nurse Bev. I'm Bev, integrative and functional nurse, and I'm really glad we're here for today's conversation because this is one of the topics that gets talked about a lot and I'm asked about a lot as a nurse. And it's often really confusing, sometimes oversimplified, and honestly, one of the most heavily marketed wellness claims that are out there. So, as we move into spring, I think a lot of people are naturally thinking about resetting their energy. The days are getting longer, the weather is getting warmer. We want to get outside more. We're opening the windows, we're moving our bodies, and maybe eating a little bit lighter and hopefully a little bit more colorful as we kind of shake off the winter. And that's usually when I hear the word detox starting to come up from individuals, either something they've been marketed through wellness products, or they're just feeling this heaviness and they're like, hey, Bev, do you think I need to do a cleanse? I saw this supplement, this powder, this tea, this juice reset, this bundle that I'm supposed to do for 30 days and it's going to fix everything for me. So all these kinds of messages suggest, that our body needs these dramatic interventions to support detox. So today I want to just talk a little bit about detox that's a little bit more grounded, a little bit more physiological, and much more aligned with how the body's actually working. So detoxification is a real thing, right? This isn't just a marketing word, but it's not necessarily what the wellness industry makes it out to be when it comes to really selling you a lot of products. So today I'm going to just walk through a bit about what it actually is, what body systems are involved, why food and lifestyle matter so much, how the mighty liver handles detoxification, and why basics such as our fiber, our hydration, our bowel movements, movement, sleep, how all of these need to come and be key pieces of our conversation. So I'm also going to, wrap up acknowledging that, yes, there is going to be a role for some individuals with targeted supports, maybe in the form of supplements, but this is going to be through personalized protocols, and I'll touch on that a little bit towards the end of the episode. So with that, let's get into it. So what detox is not? So I think this is one of the best places to start because many people hear the word detox and they might think about food restricting and fasting, green juices, teas, a box of supplements, doing things for 7 days and then never looking at it again, things like that. So, it's not or need to be about that necessarily, right? Those are all just products that are kind of being marketed to us, but our body has its own natural detoxification systems that we can work with and we need to work with, right? And not just, for a 7-day period once a year. So right now, as you're listening, your body is busy at work detoxifying. And so this is a really important shift. Instead of asking kind of what do I need to buy to detox, which is what I get asked a lot, is how do I support the natural systems of my body to help it work and function its best? So that's a completely different conversation. And I think a much more empowering conversation because it really brings us back to the fact that, our body, our physiology, there's things that we can do on an everyday basis that are going to help it function more optimally. So what is detoxification exactly, right? So what are we talking about? So it's really the process of the body transforming, neutralizing, and eliminating substances that it needs to get out, things that need to be cleared. So some of these substances actually come from outside of the body. So that might be things like, alcohol and pollutants and chemicals and additives, smoke exposure, certain medications, and compounds from our environment. But detoxification is not only about the outside toxins. So the body is actually making its own waste products from metabolism just by being alive, by digesting our food, making our hormones, breaking things down, carrying out the day-to-day metabolic processes. The body's creating byproducts that need to be processed and they need to be eliminated. So detoxification in some ways is it's an ongoing around-the-clock functional process of the body. And the body's always trying to maintain balance. That's what it does best. That is always what it's trying to do. And so some of the key players in this system that are important to spend some time understanding of how they all work. So I'm a big proponent on education. So try to stick with me from the science part of this. But I do feel that, when we really understand what's going on, it helps us make more meaningful choices. And so when we think about the detox, when we're thinking about our body parts, what comes to mind maybe the liver, and that's for good reason. A lot of people, we centrally talk about the liver when it comes to this process. But it really is kind of this major processing center of the body. So it's really transforming these substances, it's converting them to help them move out of the body. Of course, we have our kidneys that are constantly filtering our blood and eliminating our waste through our urine. Our intestines are really key player in this for regular bowel movements. Our gallbladder, because bile is involved in kind of carrying out these substances through the digestive tract. Even your lungs, which help expel that gaseous waste when you're breathing. And then your skin too. There's a major detoxification role of our skin through sweat, and why we encourage people to, see if you can sweat every day. Really important organ to help detox. And then a little system, not so little, but not talked about or known so much, is actually our lymphatic system. And the lymphatic system actually relies on us to move and breathe and contract our muscles and circulate so we can really move the fluid throughout the body and help it clean up and get to where it needs to be and get out. So even from that little bit of context, I think you can see that a lot of different body systems are actually involved in this whole process. So one thing to kind of keep in mind when I hear people saying, okay, like I need to do this detox, and then it's kind of a short-sighted, they might be taking one supplement or doing one thing, but then they're kind of forgetting that there's all these other systems at play. And then in particular with the liver is we need to understand that the liver is working really in different phases to help us be healthy and help us detoxify some of these things that we're coming across. So really thinking about it, in brief, in 3 different parts. With our liver, there's our phase 1, where it's actually transforming the substance, getting it ready. In phase 2, it's actually changing it up and packaging up into a form that's more water soluble, so it's easier for the body to eliminate. And then phase 3 is where it actually needs to move out of the body, right? And so that's really, really an important point that we're going to spend a little bit of time on today. Because all of this biochemistry is in motion, right? So you can imagine that there's a lot of different areas where the body can get a little bit stuck. So if we're not having regular bowel movements, if we're dehydrated, if we're undernourished and we're not eating enough fiber and protein, we're going to talk about some of these things. This can really have negative impacts on our body's ability to detoxify. So this is one of the reasons why how it's portrayed online with, just take a pill or just drink this tea can be oversimplified, because you really need to be supporting the entire system of the body to really optimize how it's all working. So we're going to spend some time talking about why food matters so much. One of my favorite topics and so foundational to detoxification. And really when people ask me, Bev, like what is the main thing I can do other than doing our best to avoid obviously risky substances and toxins that are external is eat our plants. And so it sounds so simplified, and sometimes people are like, really? That's it? So I'll talk a little bit about why these plants are so powerful for this, in particular when we're talking about phytonutrients in the form of our colorful plant foods. So why we tell everyone to eat the rainbow with very good reason. So these colorful plants provide these phytonutrients, and these are really bioactive compounds in our plants. And we need them to help support our antioxidant defenses and protect our cells from oxidative stress, and really help support the signaling pathways in the body. And variety really matters a lot too here. So this is why when we're talking about bringing in those colors, I don't know about you, but I know from so many conversations with patients and doing, looking over food journals and things like that, is sometimes we kind of zoom out and everyone's like, oh my goodness, Bev, I didn't realize I eat the same fruits and vegetables every day, week after week. And with that there's such an opportunity sometimes when we look at that to be like, how can we bring more color and more diversity into our diet? And it can be a really actually fun challenge. It's going to be great from a detoxification standpoint, but also great from a microbiome support perspective too. The gut really loves and thrives on diversity. So when we're thinking about these broad spectrum components of our antioxidants and our phytonutrients, I'm just thinking of our dark leafy greens, our cruciferous vegetables like our broccoli and our cauliflower and our Brussels sprouts and our cabbage and our arugula and kale. These are great bitter foods. They're really good for digestive health, weight management health. Our garlic and our onions and berries and citrus, our herbs and spices. These foods, they're really, really magical when it comes to helping out these processes and giving your body the building blocks it needs to support these pathways. So when it comes to the antioxidants, when the body is detoxifying, it can be a form of oxidative stress, right? It's releasing these components. So these antioxidants are super, super helpful to help with that. And this doesn't mean that you have to go out and take supplements forms. Again, we can do this through a great diversity of our foods in the form of plants, our berries, our greens, all of our spices, herbs. I think of green teas and citrus fruits. Getting a really good balance of our vitamins and our minerals with this too. So the liver is really going to rely very heavily on these to run all these conversions that it needs to through these pathways. So getting all of our B vitamins in and vitamin C in particular, and then minerals like zinc and selenium, also really, really important to support these pathways. So we can see how sometimes if people go on sort of these short cleanses, right, where they're maybe really fasting, or I know even some people that do like water cleanses and things like that. And I just think of that as sort of we're under nourishing at that time. And I just kind of explained all of these building blocks the body needs to support these processes that's not necessarily a long-term strategy for detoxification support. So just keeping that in mind. So I want to shift into talking about fiber, and fiber, maybe not so exciting to talk about for many people, but really it's such an essential component of the detoxification pathway. And so I want to spend a little bit of time talking about that. And many of us, at least here in the US, are not eating enough fiber per day. So kind of in general, and it's always kind of can be specific to the individual and your own health needs, but on average about 25 to 30 grams of fiber through diverse sources is what we want to shoot for. Sometimes I always recommend for people just to maybe do a short course of tracking with an app. If you're really not sure how much you're getting, that can be helpful just short term to see if you're falling short from that. And then think about strategic ways that you can bring more fiber into your diet. And so fiber really matters for the detoxification because it's really, really important for bowel regularity, and we need to be moving our bowels to move toxins out of the body. So it's going to help really move that waste through the GI tract. It's really essential for a healthy gut microbiome, and the gut microbiome, I'm sure we'll have some future episodes on this, but it's just really helpful. We want those fibers to be feeding the good gut bacteria, and this is going to play a role in healthy elimination and gut health. And it's really that fiber we break up into two different categories of soluble fiber, which is helping with things that I talk about all the time, which can really support balanced blood sugar levels, really great for those with type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, prediabetes, cholesterol, and of course the gut microbiome. So these are fibrous foods like think of our oats and our beans, lentils, chia, flax, apples, citrus fruits. But then we also have like insoluble fibers, and that's what's actually adding the bulk to our stool, supporting regular bowel movements. And this is the kind of fiber that we can find in a lot of our vegetables and our leafy greens and our nuts, seeds, whole grains, and like the skins of our fruits and vegetables. And a lot of these plant foods actually have a combination of both of these, both soluble and insoluble fiber to them. So one of the key areas when we're thinking about supporting detoxification is I like to kind of talk people through is like, well, what basics can we bring this back to, right? So I say like, are we eating enough plants? Are we eating enough just foods in their whole form? Are we hydrated enough? Are we eating enough fiber? And then are we moving our body? Are we really stressed, right? Because all of these things are really going to play a big influence on the detox pathways, particularly when it comes to the GI system and gut health and bowel regularity, which is such a key player in detoxification. And probably one of the number one reasons sometimes people present to the doctor is for gut issues. So really important thing to work on that. Another thing I wanted to bring up in this context is the importance of hydration, right? So we're talking about our kidneys and they're filtering our blood and everything's being eliminated through the urine. And so we really need to support our hydration. Again, just as I find that people are not eating a lot of diversity sometimes or eating a lot of fiber is not hydrated enough. So I do a lot with continuous glucose monitors for people where we're actually measuring blood sugar levels through a little sensor in their arm. And that's one of those big conversations I have with people a lot is around hydration from a blood sugar regulation standpoint. It's so important for so many body systems and definitely important in the detoxification arena when we're talking about this. So it's a key area to plug into if you feel like that you could improve on that. Sometimes it takes some really simple lifestyle habits to really get in the practice of hydrating on a regular basis and not maybe just hydrating once in the morning or once a night or whatever your current plan might be. Some people are doing that too. So really key with hydration is just trying to have those little pit stops throughout the day as opposed to kind of bulk at the end of the day or just first thing in the morning. I have to talk about the role of movement with detox as well, because for a lot of people, if we're really sedentary, that's not only going to impact like having a sluggish bowel, but it's not supportive of just circulation in general. So we want to think about moving our body in different ways. And yes, this might be going to the gym and doing some strength training, but this could just be simply like getting up from your desk, moving around, going for a walk, taking deep breaths, belly breaths, stretching. This is really going to support overall circulation. It's going to move the lymphatics around. We talked about the lymphatic flow, bowel regularity, and then of course it's going to help with stress management, which is always a good thing to tune into whenever we're trying to make any of the systems of the body work most optimally. And another one to think about is how are we sleeping? So this really does matter a lot for so many different aspects of our health. So a lot of times we're very focused on what are we eating? Are we exercising? Yeah, we need to focus on those things. But sleep often gets really left out of that picture. And so sometimes people are, when I cue that up, when like I'm talking to them about, well, let's talk about your eating and are you exercising? And then I ask them about sleep and then they kind of will laugh at me or they'll say, oh yeah, that's an area I'm really struggling in. So it's so common to struggle with sleep issues and just want to like bring that up as an area of focus and opportunity when we maybe don't focus on it enough in trying to support our body from a sleep standpoint. But sleep really is essential for so many of the body systems and our hormone regulation and reducing inflammation and our blood sugar and of course supporting these pathways that I'm talking about. And really interestingly is the brain actually has its own way of kind of cleaning things out and it's housekeeping. And it's not very well understood right now in humans, but I know there's a lot of ongoing research actually looking at the systems of how the brain does this and cleans out itself when we're sleeping at night. So from just a perspective of, the body cleaning things up, moving things out that's no longer needed, there's definitely a role for sleep with this, in particular when it comes to our brain. So what can burden these pathways, right? So you might say, okay, this is great. I have this idea of all these things that I need to be eating and doing to support these processes in my body. But like what might be coming at me in my day-to-day life that's actually making it harder for my body to do this? So could be a lot of different things, but a low fiber diet, a diet that's low in nutrient density. So this might look like a lot of, highly processed foods, low protein intake. I think a lot of like nutrient deficiencies, obviously alcohol consumption, chronic constipation, issues with sleep, unmanaged chronic stress, being very sedentary. So even if you're a person maybe who's not in the gym though, are you a person that's sitting a lot? And then of course, the higher overall burden of what's in our environment and our lifestyle, which sometimes we have, unfortunately, very little control over. And another thing that's really important to keep in mind with this is that a lot of this has to do with the individual themselves. So I always talk to people about sort of like what is their bucket, right? The bucket. So, 5 things can happen to one person and they can be fine, and 5 of these things can happen to another person and they could be made very sick. So individuality has a lot to do with this and people's capacity on how the body is going to regulate this and what they're going to be most impacted by. Which is a reason why, circling back to the beginning, when we kind of just reach for maybe that supplement on that shelf, or we reach for that box of, 30 days of supplements that's going to do a detox for us, that we need to be really careful. We need to be really careful that these are targeted interventions and that do we actually need all this and what do we need? So I always like to bring that back, that more is not always better. Knowing what's right for you is always the best. And sometimes just because something's marketed as being natural doesn't mean it's safe. And this is particularly important if you do have any particular medical conditions, if you're taking medications, if you do have, chronic digestive issues and maybe you're not able to move your bowels. You have to be very, very careful with some of these things that maybe you'd be purchasing and trying on your body in an effort to, detoxify. So what does an overall kind of supportive detox plan look like? I would say foundations, and then there's always room to personalize this. But thinking about colorful plants, thinking about increasing your fiber, drinking enough water, your regular bowel movements, moving your body so you can get that good circulatory flow, quality sleep, cutting back on alcohol, reducing unnecessary exposures where you can, and just eating in a way that is as most whole foods based as possible and less burdensome on the body. So some of these key takeaways, since there's a lot to unpack here in this episode, are really thinking about first, detoxification is truly real. Your body is busy at work right at this moment. 2, your liver is really central to this, but it's not working alone. It's definitely getting help from other areas of the body, such as your kidneys and your intestines, your gallbladder, your lungs, your skin, and your lymphatic systems. 3, your nutrition matters deeply when it comes to this. So just think lots of colorful plants and phytonutrients and antioxidants, vitamins, minerals, proteins, healthy fats, and of course, fiber. 4, your elimination does matter. So really getting the support you need, around having these regular bowel movements, getting sweat to be part of your daily activity, and really working on optimizing it through your nutrition and your everyday movement patterns. And then 5th is more is not always better, right? So not everybody needs to be doing these cleanses. Not everybody needs to be doing supplements. And the most supportive thing that you can really do for your body is consistent nourishment around these foundational health behaviors that I just shared. So I hope this episode helped make you think of the word detox maybe in a different way and maybe outside of what's just gimmicky if you turned away from that and really bring it back to the reality of it being based in nutrition and everyday lifestyle habits. So if this conversation helped clarify detox for you or made you think a little bit differently about what your body actually needs, I'd love for you to share this episode with someone who might need it too. So thanks for spending so much time here with me. And remember that wellness is really built through your everyday choices, both big and small. And I'll see you next time on Everyday Wellness with Nurse Bev.